So I'm going to make this video as quick as possible because I can see right over in the distance here we've got another big thunderstorm coming in. It is Friday the 16th of August and I have a huge update. So in this video we're going to be talking about the knock-on effects of the flights delays and cancellations that we have seen over at Palma Airport, and I'm going to let you know your rights as well because, well, we've had quite a situation over at the airport in the past 24 hours with literally thousands of people having to stay and sleep on the floor at the airport too. So it's really important that you guys know your rights if this happens, because it will happen again. We will get storms and these flights will get cancelled at some point, whether it's this summer or next summer. So this is a very important video to even come back and watch in the future as well. Not only that, I'm also going to let you know what the airport have been doing about it as well for the passengers at the airport too. Bizarrely enough, I've got a Ryanair apology for you as well, which I wasn't expecting to bring in this video, but I'll give it to you anyway. Plus, I'm going to give you a very quick weather forecast for the next 48 hours as well, so you guys don't have to worry if you're coming over here on holiday too. Okay, so I'm going to start this video. I'm back here in the Foodinetta Cafe on Magaluf Beach. I've got myself a Frappuccino. I'm just looking back here to see the progression of the dark skies looming towards me, the dark clouds coming over this side of the island. But first, I'm going to let you know about the hotel crisis that we've had over here on the island over the past 24 hours. And that is simply because of all the delayed flights that we've had over at Palma Airport and the cancelled flights too. A lot of the airlines who have cancelled flights have asked passengers to either sleep at the airport or go ahead and make alternative arrangements to find a night's stay while they wait for their return flight back to wherever they are flying to. Now, this has not been great at all because looking on booking.com last night, I saw that we had only 3 hotel nights available on booking.com, and these cost anything from €1,500 to something like €4,000 for the night, which is absolutely ridiculous, and well, no one's going to pay that. Now, we are in the busiest week of tourism for this summer. It's the busiest weekend of the island. We've had a public holiday over here this week, so availability in hotels is next to impossible, and I'm guessing the airlines are hedging their bets as well, that if they can't sort anything out for their passengers, then indeed the passengers will sleep at the airport and they'll get to save themselves some money. However, I want to also outline your rights too about what you need to know if this does happen to you. Also, if you're over at the airport, do you need to stay in the airport? What can you do to find accommodation as well? So last night we got a message on the Mallorca Under the Sun Facebook group saying, from one lady, our flight got cancelled, our only option is to go back on Monday. Bearing in mind she wrote this on Thursday night. We went back to our hotel, but everything is full. We made phone calls, called our holiday organisation, and they just said sleep at the airport for 4 days. We are literally on the streets. I mean, this is terrible. If you can imagine people travelling with elderly relatives, with disabled travellers, with small children, with babies, I mean, this in my opinion is completely unacceptable. And I appreciate you cannot magic hotel rooms out of thin air, particularly in peak season, but I think more can be done, and we're going to get onto this in just a minute as well, because I had a chat to the airport this morning and I've done a little bit of digging around too. So I've also had a look at the Ministry of Transport in Spain's official website, which they've got a page in English, and I'm going to drop a link to this below this video. And this webpage actually outlines your rights if you're travelling through Palma Airport at whatever time of year and you get your flight delayed and cancelled. And you may remember a couple of days ago in my original Mallorca Storms video, I did say that the airline does have a duty of care for you if you're travelling through the airport. So this is what they've said. Now, they stipulate that passengers have the right of attention while waiting for their return or alternative flight. In other words, the airline has to give them, number 1, sufficient food and drink. Number 2, phone calls and access to email. Number 3, accommodation in a hotel if it is necessary to stay overnight or if it is necessary to stay in addition to that provided by the passenger. And number 4, transportation between the airport and place of accommodation. And they also say, do not forget that if the carrier does not comply with its obligation to provide the indicated care free of charge, the passenger must keep the receipts of the expenses incurred and subsequently claim them from the airline. Now, this is so important because this is what's actually going to happen to a lot of people staying at the airport as well. If the airline is not providing you with a hotel night. And I'm just looking on booking.com as well for tonight, because by the looks of it, a lot of passengers are being delayed by 4 or 5 days before they can get their return flight home. So they're going to need accommodation. I can see we've got some availability over in Campastia, which is actually right near the airport. So it's also going to mean that you guys as passengers are going to need to have quite a healthy credit card to fit the bill for the next few nights if you decide to take up their offer of a return flight. So very, very important. First of all, if you book that accommodation, make sure the costs are reasonable. You have to prove as well that these are the costs that you've had to pay. In addition, keep any receipts as well that you spend on any reasonable cost for food. Obviously doesn't include alcohol. Plus keep your taxi receipts to and from the airport as well. So that's really, really important. Just keep a record of everything and make sure your food is itemised as well on the restaurant receipts that you get to. Don't just have that little credit cards thing that they give you. Okay, so more about rights. The Spanish Ministry of Transport also say your right of reimbursement or alternative transportation. Now this is also very important because, well, if you are not being offered a flight for about anything from 2 to 5 days, you actually have the right to book a flight on any other airline or any other means to get yourself back to your home country as quickly as possible. You don't have to take up their offer of a flight in 4 to 5 days time and then stump up the cost of potentially €1,000 in a hotel room. You don't need to do that. What you can do is try and find an alternative route home with an alternative airline, book it, travel on it, and then claim the cost of that back too. So they have a right to get you back by whatever means possible. And this says the reimbursement of the cost of the ticket within 7 days with the return to the airport of origin in case the passenger is on the connection if his trip is no longer necessary. The refund must be made in cash, bank transfer, cheque or travel vouchers or other services subject to the agreement by the passenger. And the Ministry of Transport also say rerouting to your final destination as quickly as possible and under purchasable transport conditions. It's on its way. I think I can just about get through the rest of this update before the storm arrives. And they also say rerouting at a later date convenient to the passenger. In case of choosing that option, the passenger ceases to have the right of attention from that moment on. Okay, so the Ministry of Transport also say, I just want to go through all of these points. Do not forget that if the company does not comply with its obligation to provide them with the choice between the 3 options above, and you choose to buy your own ticket, you must keep the receipt and new boarding pass to claim them from the airline. So again, super important. Make sure you get the receipt. If you can request a receipt from the airline, do that as well. And remember that alternative transport offered by the carrier must be the one that allows you to arrive as quickly as possible to your destination, including flights with other airlines and other possible means of transport with comparable conditions. So this sets it out very, very clearly actually on the Ministry of Transport website. I'll drop a link to this article below as well. It gives you everything you need to know. But it's this particular item here which is so important that you do not have to actually stay on the islands. You do not have to find alternative accommodation. You can try and find another route home, even if it means maybe going via Barcelona to get to your home country if you can't get a direct flight, but you can try and get yourself back as quickly as possible in a day if need be without having to go to the expense of trying to find alternative accommodation on the islands. However, you might have a fight on your hands to get this paid back, and this, I just want to stipulate, it's not compensation. This falls under the duty of care by the airline as well. As we all know, the storms that we've had and the delays and cancellations, you can't claim compensation. It's not the airline's fault, but they have a duty of care, and this is what we mean by a duty of care for you. Okay, very quickly as well, if you are choosing to stay for the night, another quick tip, if you're using booking.com as well, when you're searching, quite a few of the hotels say that you can only book for, say, more than 2 nights or maybe more than 3 nights. Some of them only have a minimum stay requirement, so try and put 2 or 3 nights stay in. If you see there is availability, then contact the hotel directly, explain the situation, see if they can just put you up for a night. That may be another solution. You may find a little bit of additional availability too. Sometimes when they load their availability onto booking.com, they only allow, say, between 2 or 3 or 4 nights to be booked in blocks and not these like 1 night stays, particularly in peak season. So that's another top tip. But one group member did comment, the airport is packed with people sleeping and looking deflated from being here by what looks like all night. And even a tent was set up before airport security too. This is just shocking. And after I read this, it just led me to get in touch with our lovely team, our lovely comms team over at Palma Airport, because I want to know what these guys are doing about it. If you imagine, if you have one flight cancelled, that's potentially 300 people on the flight. That means that one flight, we need 150 hotel rooms to accommodate these people. I appreciate some of those people on that flight may well be residents and can just go home. But if you multiply that flight by many flights that were cancelled, you can just get some idea as to how much accommodation we actually need on the island. And at this time of year, if you do not have that accommodation available, well, the airport's going to have to do something. And I don't like the thought of people sleeping on the floor. Now, I just want to add as well that the scenes of people sleeping on the floor is not fantastic when you see other airports doing a lot more. I remember, I think it was last year, Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam, they had some temporary camp beds that they provided for delayed passengers too that had to spend the night in the airport, and they had pillows and blankets for them too. So I'm really keen to hear what the airport have done. So this is what they said. They said, at the airports, when there are these types of situations, rooms are set up for passengers, especially for families with children, elderly people or the sick. In addition, all services are open 24 hours a day and everything necessary is offered, such as blankets and other materials that we have. However, I mentioned that people were sleeping on the floors last night, and I've heard this, it's been all over social media, people sleeping actually on the floor. So they said, during last night, some rooms were open so that passengers could enter and not all be in the same place. The companies are in charge of relocating passengers and finding accommodation for them. Well, we all know that didn't happen, don't we? And when they say rooms as well, they mean like big areas. So like kind of like a big kind of conference room area was opened up. But were they actually open, particularly around Terminal A? And that's the area where I appreciate I've got quite a large chunk of my audience travelling back to the UK. Let me know if they opened up additional rooms over that side of Terminal A. So they went on to say, so I went on to ask them where passengers in the future could even find these spaces around Terminal A. And they said, not only do they provide folding beds with blankets, but one room is in the boarding area and the other room is in the arrivals area. So let me know, guys, let me know if you were caught out at Palma Airport last night, if you found these folding beds and blankets, if you found these areas as well around departures or arrivals, if you were also put up and allowed to just get away from that packed in feeling around the boarding gate too. Let me know how the airport helped you out too, and also if there's enough food available in the restaurants too, if they've got enough food in, if you're provided with water, that kind of thing. Just let me know in comments. Alternatively, do feel free to email me your comment to onalex@mallorcaunderthesun.com. I'll drop my email address below too. Let me know what happened when you stayed over at the airport last night. I think we'd all like to know. Now, I do have a message here for all our lovely friends over at Palma Airport, because I appreciate that while, particularly during August, we can't just magic availability up from nowhere, I do actually think that more could be done by yourselves in terms of accommodating passengers. So Palma Airport is rather huge, and if you do have these rooms available, then maybe it might be worth investing in further camp beds. It may also be worth talking to the polideportivos, the sports centres around Palma Airport as well, and putting up what sounds like hundreds, if not thousands, of passengers for the night in these sports centres with camp beds and pillows, and just not having everyone lying asleep on the floor. You wouldn't want it for your parents or your grandparents or whatever. You wouldn't want it. You wouldn't want it for anybody like that. It's not great. It's not dignified. So maybe plans should be put in place. And if Schiphol Airport can do it, then surely Palma can improve conditions, particularly for those that really need it. So I'm going to keep on about this issue, and I'm sure I'll be contacting you in the future. Feel free to contact me as well if you're going to make some alternative plans to help out holiday makers coming over for when we do have more storms. And of course we are going to get storms. This isn't going to be the last storm we're going to have. We are going to have further flights delays and cancellations as well going on into the future, whether it's this summer or next year. But I want to know that people are going to be looked after. If the airlines can't provide a full duty of care in terms of finding accommodation, well, I think the responsibility might have to fall with the airport and trying to sort something out so people have a more dignified place to sleep, even if it is just on a camp bed in the airport and not on the floor. Anyway, Okay, so let's move on to quite an unusual apology from Ryanair. Now, you may remember yesterday I said that the ongoing flight delays would probably continue, particularly with the low-cost carriers, because of the fact that the aircrafts aren't where they're supposed to be, so it would take a day or so for them to catch up. Not in the case of Ryanair, because, and this is quite unbelievable actually, I can't believe it, but Ryanair has a ban on incoming flights to Palma yesterday, and they put out a press statement all about it. Now, they said Ryanair, Europe's #1 airline, and that's their words, it's not mine, on the 15th of August apologised to its passengers for the excessive delays and cancellations at Palma de Mallorca following the nonsensical decision by Spanish Air Traffic Control, ATC, to block inbound aircrafts from landing this morning due to weather, which makes no sense, given that there were no weather issues in Palma this morning, as confirmed by the fact that flights departing Palma were allowed to continue as normal. Passengers were allowed to leave Palma de Mallorca, but those coming on holiday were not allowed to arrive. Now, Ryanair has been unable to contact the head of the Spanish Air Traffic Control this morning to reverse this nonsensical decision, and now calls on the Spanish Minister of Transport to explain why Palma de Mallorca was closed to arriving passengers due to non-existent weather issues. Now, I think that's just a whole different take on why flights were delayed and cancelled, but there you go, Ryanair weren't allowed to come in, so very, very bizarre. But the good news is, and looking over at Palma Airport today, I can see that flights are starting to get back to normal. We do have delays ranging from around 45 minutes to a couple of hours on most flights. Yes, it's going to take a few more days for everything to catch up back to normal again, but hopefully we'll see a return to normality soon. Which now brings me on to the weather forecast for the next couple of days. Now, the good news is that we've got plenty of actual sunshine on the island today, unlike the very cloudy, heavy conditions that we saw yesterday. Check out my video from over here in Magaluf yesterday if you want to see what that was like. I'll pin it at the end of this video. But we also do have some very scattered storms blowing through the island throughout the afternoon, throughout the evening, and also early tomorrow morning too, so just watch out for those. We're going to get some lightning too. My lightning app is lighting up once again, saying we've got lots of lightning around too. It's not everywhere though, which is good news, and we should see the sun coming back out again as of later on tomorrow. So this is fantastic news. We're going to see a return to the very high temperatures. It's currently about 28, 29 degrees over here in Magaluf. It's going to be back into the 30s tomorrow, and we're going to have sunshine moving forward too. But I'm going to be back here on Monday to give you an update for the week ahead too. Don't forget to consider subscribing if you haven't done so already. I hope this video has proved useful. I'm going to finish off the rest of my frappuccino. But if you want to see what other travellers have had to say about their experience over at Palma Airport, head on over to the Mallorca Under the Sun Facebook group. There's plenty going on over there at the moment. Also follow the Facebook page as well. I try and post some other alerts and updates that we have going on over there too. Plus you can find me on Instagram too, also called Mallorca Under the Sun, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Goodbye for now.